Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're looking today at President Trump's remarks from the National Day of Prayer. We've got some news reports, and our goal is really to unpack the main themes from what seemed like a pretty unusual address.
Yeah, definitely not your standard prayer breakfast, was it? It was this interesting mix. You had the religious side, sure, but then also quite a bit of political talk, looking back at his time in office and, even bringing up the election stuff again.
Okay, so let's dig into that first part, the religion and politics mix. Reports mentioned him saying things like they're bringing back religion and something about setting aside the separation of church and state. Just for a moment, I think he said.
Exactly. And he mentioned his faith advisors, too. It really points towards, well, a desire to see religion play a much more visible, maybe even influential role in public life.
Bringing back religion implies he thinks it's faded, right?
Yeah.
That it needs a boost.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. That its influence isn't what he thinks it should be and needs active restoration.
And then there was that connection he made. He took the National Day of Prayer, mentioned the 250th anniversary of that old Continental Congress prayer proclamation,
Right.
and then tied it together with, like, the FIFA World Cup and the Olympics, calling it all 4 years of celebration where we're going to bring God. That's quite a linkage.
It is striking. It's sort of weaving this religious thread through these huge, secular, national, and international events, maybe trying to give them a sense of divine significance in the national story.
Then you had the more overtly political stuff, attacks on opponents.
Oh, yeah. He definitely went there. Criticizing Democrats, using that phrase, Trump derangement syndrome.
Right, in relation to that big, beautiful bill he talked about with the tax cuts.
And then he made that connection, suggesting higher taxes could somehow damage people's religious faith. Which is, well, it's not a link you hear made often.
No, it's not. Linking tax policy to faith itself.
It could be strategic, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to frame economic issues in sort of spiritual terms to maybe rally religious conservatives.
And predictably, perhaps, the 2020 election came up again.
Yes, the claims about it being rigged against Biden, still very much part of the message.
And he took it further this time, didn't he? Saying the wars in Gaza and Ukraine wouldn't have happened if the election hadn't been, quote, rigged.
That's a massive claim, connecting those debunked election theories directly to current major global conflicts. It really ramps up the stakes he's attaching to those claims.
There was also a quick comment about crowds, wasn't there? Something about people standing for his speech versus, hypothetically, for a Biden speech.
Yeah, focusing on the visual, the enthusiasm of the crowd.
Yeah.
It's a common way to sort of signal strength and contrast yourself with opponents, by using that visible support as a benchmark.
Okay. And what about looking back? He mentioned his administration's achievements.
He did. Talked about the first 100 days, even though, reports at the time often cited lower poll numbers then. But he highlighted things like border control, boosting military enrollment, talking to world leaders.
Right, painting that positive picture of his presidency.
Exactly. Reinforcing that specific narrative, focusing on what he sees as the key successes.
And then there was a very personal faith element. He said something like, God answered other prayers by putting him in the White House.
Yes, to make you proud again and believe more again. That's attributing his presidency very directly to divine will.
Which is a statement that can land very differently depending on your own views, obviously.
Absolutely. For some, it might resonate deeply. For others, mixing politics and divine intervention like that raises different questions.
And finally, Dr. Phil was there, briefly.
Yeah, Dr. Phil McGraw made an appearance, said he was proud to see religion come back to the White House.
So his comment kind of reinforces that main theme Trump was pushing.
It does. It adds another voice echoing that narrative of restoring religion's place in the public sphere.
So wrapping up, this address was really a tapestry, wasn't it? You had threads of religion, political jabs, old grievances about the election, future plans, and claims of past success all woven together.
Precisely. It was all in there. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does it mean when a specifically religious event becomes such a clear platform for political campaigning, for settling scores, and for making these kinds of personal claims about divine backing? What does that suggest about the speaker's view on faith, leadership, and, well, how they fit together in a country like ours?
A lot to think about there. Definitely food for thought.